Vincent Howell.
Here.
Councilor David A. Ulibarri Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion carries. Thank you, Mayor. We have a quorum.
The United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilor Romero, would you please do the moment of silence?
A moment of silence for all those that have passed away in our communities this month. Also for guidance and continued support to make sure that everyone here in this governing board, council, continue to do what's in the best interest of our community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. We are now in our work session for August 14, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the board?
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Do I have a second? Second. Roll call.
Councilor Romero.
Yes.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.
Yes.
Councilor Howell.
Yes.
Councilor Casey.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Casey, a second by Councilor Howell. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The next item is public input. Our first participant is Ms. Corina Henry on budget.
Good evening.
Madam Mayor, I just had a couple, and I kind of missed the bus on signing up for public input on the previous meeting, but I wanted to share some. My input is suggestion for questions of staff again, and maybe some observations of where the process could be improved a little bit. The first being, I was looking at your fourth quarter final budget report, and in particular on lodger's tax. Those funds being dedicated as 2/5 for advertisement, 1/5 for infrastructure by city ordinance. Your budget line items aren't broken down that way at all, so you can't really have the oversight to know how those monies are being spent pursuant to the state statute and also the city ordinance that was passed last year for the expenditure of those. Another observation there is you have court fines going into the general fund, and whether or not it was intentional, by ordinance 20-13D, court fines are designated to the same purposes as the correction fund is currently designated as, care of prisoners, those kinds of things. That might have been a drafting error back when that ordinance was put in, but the fines were supposed to be designated in that way. So I encourage, discussions with staff and questions and looking into that. And then my final comment has to do with this budget approval process. And I urge you to be more transparent in the future, because I guess you all have a ballot-bound binder of what you just did in that last meeting. But of course, in the agenda materials, pages 57 and 58, we have nothing. We have no record of what it is you were looking at. So as your constituents, if that was something that from the preliminary budget meeting that happens in the spring in May or April, that was available to us in a format, a PDF format. City of Santa Fe uses HTML searchable, and that's really handy. The added benefit of that is that you all know that what's sitting in front of you actually reflects what gets submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the public input is Ms. Larissa Archuleta, and this is regarding the Robertson High School fencing project. Larissa, how are you?
Good evening, Ms. Archuleta. How are you?
Distinguished Council, Madam Mayor, I would like to speak this evening on the processes that were taken on the where we had to be abruptly stopped in our project, which we do have a permit that has been issued by the city. I was not given anything in writing. I do know that there was a meeting on July 29th, which I was made aware of. Unfortunately, when I went through our mail, a letter was sent, but it was not attention to maintenance director, attention to the superintendent of the Las Vegas City Schools. So we were not aware that the meeting actually took place. At the end of March, when I did come in and in the paperwork, I was told they were not sure when the Planning and Zoning Committee would be meeting. So I had no knowledge of when the meeting would have taken place because we would have, of course, been there. My track record will show as me taking over as the superintendent. I do not miss meetings. That would be outside of my character for me to do that, so I was not aware. An email, a phone call, anything of that nature would have been greatly appreciated. There have been concerns, I understand, from the community. I do have 3 different instances where the school district has met, where they did sign in and were aware of what was occurring on the premises in front of their properties. The gating and the fencing is beautiful if you've been there. It's aesthetically pleasing. It helped beautify the community within that area. I know within front of the homes, they have asked who would maintain the street. Well, of course, within those homes, that belongs to the city, not to the Las Vegas City Schools. The portion in question where the gate it has been placed has been moved back 100 feet because we were taking into consideration the people who live there from the community, giving them enough space. We have closed off enough parking areas. I did find it odd, though, within some of the explanations that I was given, Mr. Juan Carlos Fulgenzi did not take over as the maintenance director until July. The trash cans that are within concern with the waste department, they are currently on the outside of the premises. So I'm not sure where in June they were talking about where they were concerned that they cannot get into the campus because we did not ask about that until in the mid part of July. So I'm not quite sure where that documentation had come from or who had spoken to them. These are just different concerns. Again, with the transparency, we would like to work, with the city to make sure that we have done what we need to, that this does not happen to any other entity, that the fluidity is in the process, so that we can all work together and maintain and work with the community.
Ms. Archuleta, you do have a meeting with Anne-Marie and staff.
Yes,
tomorrow.
ma'am, tomorrow at 10 a.m. So thank you very much. We do
Thank you.
appreciate
I'm
that.
sure they'll be working.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll continue to work with the city schools as well as with
I'm sorry.
West Las Vegas schools. We do have a meeting. There are some concerns, but we are going to be working through those issues and see how quickly we can get their project back on track.
Okay, thank you very much.
The next person on the agenda on public input, is Mr. Emilio Aragon. Yes, Mr. Aragon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor,
Mr. Allen, how are
Council.
you this evening?
Just a note, I put a trash can over on the Riverwalk, if we could get like 3 others interspersed. Okay, but anyway, I'm really impressed about all the business that goes on here every meeting. It is mind-boggling. So when do we have time for all this negativity that's going on with the optic and Channel 4 and all that? Aren't you guys busy enough? We pay you for it. I wish you could apply more of that energy toward running the city and quit putting it down. This is a beautiful city. Born and raised here, I know what it is. 2 months ago I came and brought up a problem of $19,000 that was appropriated from the sale of my property. To date, the representative of my district hasn't called me or made any effort or made a whimper. If we would get away from all this negativity, maybe we could take care of the business at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aragon.
Thank you, Mr. Aragon.
The next person on public input is Mr. Lorenzo Flores.
Good evening, Mr. Flores. How are you?
Councilman Olivari, Mayor. Mr. Howell, I believe that it's unethical and a conflict of interest for you to be working for the Franklin Company family and voting on contracts for them as a city councilman. I am also concerned about the 18 violations of HUD since you're concerned about finances, 11 of them are financially, and your name is here, so are the other two councilmen and all of you. But since you're the majority, you guys have not addressed these. We already lost a hot program because of your guys' failure to address these issues. Another thing is, as a board member of the Alta Vista Hospital, you never showed no concern for the malpractice and the lack of medical treatment that was there for the community. Even that girl that died on her way to Santa Fe with the baby because they weren't treating the local people here anymore, you showed no compassion and you made no comment about anything like that. Mrs. Casey, I have here the West Las Vegas lawsuit that you filed. This is the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, where 4 of your 5 claims were dismissed because it shows your modus operandi, just like when you sued East Las Vegas, the situation at the Hondo schools over there when they put restraining orders on you. And it's obvious here that you have a pattern of everywhere you go, you create havoc, you go behind people's backs, you report everybody to everybody except yourself. So this proves your credibility is right here, and as far as I'm concerned, you have no credibility. Mr. Romero, your dishonesty and your deceit deceived you before you took this position. One of the issues concerning the mayor is the voter fraud that you reported to the Attorney General before the election. So you should explain to the community how you were able to get that information, which involved absentee ballots, which are protected by law. So, you want to talk about hypocrisy, you should look at yourself. Another thing that concerns me about you is that you, as chairman of the West Las Vegas School Board, this is the optic, assisted the superintendent to cover up an FBI child pornography investigation that went on at the elementary schools. So before the 3 of you start pointing fingers and think that you're all goody two-shoes, maybe you should look at yourselves in the mirror and actually see what you really are. You're nothing but a bunch of hypocrites. And if I were the 3 of you before the mayor, your opinion of the mayor that she is not able to run this city, maybe the 3 of you should resign, or we'll do our hardest the next election to get the 3 of you out, because we need honest, decent people sitting up there, not hypocrites and people that point fingers when you yourselves have so much baggage. And this is nothing compared to the other stuff that I know about you guys. But since I only have a few minutes, that'll suffice for now. So we'll see you guys soon again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. The next person is Cordia Salmon. Good evening, Cordia.
Ms. Anna, good evening.
Some of my comments tonight are going to seem like old business because certain council members refused to pass the agenda at the last meeting. And if they have such concern for the cost to the taxpayers, what does it cost to call a meeting and then not conduct any business in it? I've seen a lot of obstructionism going on where they are not trying to solve problems of the city, they're too busy pointing fingers. And I feel like I'm going to go with these comments, even though they're kind of old news, because I think they're still pertinent. First of all, I'd like to go over some of the accomplishments that our mayor has done for this city. She's completed the Story Lake project with a saving of $8 million, speaking of money. The renovation of the Bradner Reservoir to increase storage capacity for the city has been accomplished, and the passage of a water conservation ordinance to exempt small personal food gardens from water restrictions for food security, which is very important today. Also, the renovation of the Abe Montoya Recreation Center was completed, and the water is in good shape because they completed a program of looping water lines for continuous water flow, which improves water quality for all of us and for pressure for fire protection, among other things. So there's been a lot of things that have been accomplished that we get out there in the paper. And a more important issue is the actions that some of the city council are taking against the mayors. They're false accusations at this point that haven't been proved. They are allegations. And some of them were proved false in the special audit that was conducted at expense, again, to the city taxpayers. These tactics, to me, are a threat to our civil and human rights. The raid conducted on the mayor's home was a disgrace. They were serving a search warrant, but they used Gestapo-like procedures designed to humiliate and create fear for her and her family. And then it was a very biased reporting by the press, and it was interesting, they were all there waiting to take the pictures and put it all out there. And the actions of the new editor asking for resignation of the mayor based on unproven allegations by members of the council. The new editor who has been here a very short time. Further, the harassment of the news channel, not respecting the mayor's right to say no comment. I don't want to talk. We all have that right. And I was here and saw how they just kept harassing her. It was not respectful. These actions are great concern to me.
I'll allow you to continue.
Thank you. Because any of us, if someone's intent on discrediting us, can use these kind of tactics. It may not be the mayor next time, it may be you. So we need to think about what's happening. These actions are scary, they're not acceptable in a democracy, and you may not agree or like the mayor, but you have no right to assume guilt and harass her in the way she's been harassed, in the manner that you have all demonstrated. If anything's putting a dark cloud over Las Vegas, it's the behavior of the press and the people who want to see her removed. The real question I have is what is behind these tactics, and why are they so desperate to remove the mayor? She's at the end of her term, so what is pushing this unjust behaviors? I did not think I would like to see a time when we would be scared to be in our own homes because of the kind of things I see happening. And I want to compliment the staff and the city staff for keeping up with business under these tremendous pressures. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is Mr. Philip Marquis on the fencing project. Oh, there we go. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Madam Mayor. All right, I just want to speak a little bit on the RHS fencing project. So it does affect us. I live along the street. If you could have been there today to see the mess it is, you would see why we're not really against fencing the whole thing, but fencing the street. We did get a certified letter to show up to that meeting, which the board from RHS did not show up to. We had to sign for the letter to let us know that the meeting was being held, and a few of us were able to show up. And in fact, a few of us are here today because we found out that they were going to be speaking on it and trying to bypass what was done. They did move it back from the original plans. It was right up against the edge of the fence, and they moved it back since that meeting. So somehow they had to have known something. But we're not against the fencing. We're against the part of the road that it affects, because it does affect us. Affects our parking, and it affects the flow of the traffic through there. Like I said, if you go through there and they're having a meeting tomorrow, you can see it, okay? And this is in our area, Arbor Casey, so this affects, what's happening there. And there's others that are going to speak about this. Like I said, we were never informed until that meeting that our street was going to be blocked off. And like I said, I received that certified letter, and so did some of the other ones. And that's how we knew about the meeting. So we went to the planning and zoning meeting, and that's why they put it on hold till they could actually meet. Nobody from the schools ever met with any of the 4 residents that are affected. So that was more the problem, I think, the communication part. If it would have been, they would have come and we would have had a meeting with the people there, it might have been resolved without all this extra. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you,
Mayor.
Mr. Marquis. The next person is Diane Lindsay. Good evening, Ms. Lindsay.
Good evening, Ms. Lindsay.
Council, staff. I'm Diane Lindsay from Las Vegas, and I want to thank you, Madam Mayor, for hanging in there through this very difficult time, and staff. I believe our city is operating very well. When I listened to Maria or Anne Marie, I'm just very impressed with the abilities and the knowledge and it's really, I think it's very, very well. And Corey summed up a lot of the accomplishments done that were hanging over from the last administration. So what is going on here? 6 weeks ago in the paper we had Councilman Howell saying, I'm ready to go, take over the reins, be the mayor. And Council Casey saying she should resign. No justice being done there. No due process, no charges, no guilt assigned. But you're ready to take her out. And yet you stand and pledge allegiance to the flag at every meeting and say, justice for all. Except who? Our mayor? And I'm really bothered by that. I'm bothered that bullies, and I consider you bullies, would be attacking someone who's doing a really good job, who's come into office to clean up some of the corruption, I believe. And what is behind all this? I'm wondering. The newspaper that's supposed to be local, owned by a corporation in Kentucky, where the Senator McConnell has been for decades, who has nothing good to say about women. Is that a coincidence that our optic is connected to that state? Is that a coincidence that most of the news about what happens in this administration is twisted? I come to a meeting, I read it in the optic, and it's different. It's not the same meeting. Things were left out or slightly skewed. And that's our supposedly local paper. And I wonder, what does that mean? I don't think we have respect for ourselves anymore, that we continue to listen to that kind of media, well, news, when it's so slanted. I would really like to see the three of you resign for that very reason. Because for, 2 years you've been just obstructing and trying to remove someone. I don't believe that was the oath you took. I don't believe that's what you came here for. Or maybe you did. That's on your conscience. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Tammy Shutter on the Robertson High School gate. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, Madam Mayor and City Council. Yes, my name is Tammy Shutter, and I currently reside at 1114 4th Street, which is right next door to the school bus depot parking lot. Myself and my domestic partner back there, aka husband, if that's what you would like to call him, he actually is on the owners for the assessors of that house, and I live there and reside with him. And we were never informed by the school board whatsoever that any sort of fencing was going to go up in that area or across the street. We did not receive the certified letter from the zoning board or the school board at all, letting us know what was going on. The only thing that told us what was going on was a sign that was posted up on the fence at the city bus parking depot, saying that the zoning meeting was on Monday, July 29th. That was the only information we had on the subject, at which they had already started putting the fence up already across the street, even before the zoning board met. At that meeting, it was discussed that no further action would be taken on any of that construction until the school board came to us as residents and owner of those properties and informed us what was going on. That did not happen whatsoever. Also, the zoning board stating that no further action should be done on that construction until it is proven That is not going to cause difficulties for any driving or parking or any issues with the fire department, because every vehicle a large vehicle that has to go down our street has to back out of the street. There is no room for turning around. That is unsafe for our properties, for the fire department not to be able to get any sort of thoroughfare to reach our property whatsoever. Also, it affects us in the fact that during either meetings in the school, if there's assemblies in the school, or if there are any games out in the fields, people line up to park on our street, sometimes even blocking our driveways so that they can make it to the football game or to the assembly inside the gym. All those extra parking spaces that people of the community utilized are now being taken away because that whole end of the street is now going to be closed off, putting more constipation on our side of the street as landowners for people trying to park even more densely in that area to go to the football games and assemblies in the gym. That is all I have to say on the matter, Madam Mayor, City Council members.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. The next person is Mr. Timothy Grenier.
Oh, she spoke for me.
Sorry. Luann Marquez is the next person.
I want to say the same thing. My husband spoke exactly that she said, especially when we were saying grow, work together.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That concludes our public input. Madam Mayor, members of the council. The next item on the agenda is the discussion items. The first one is resolution number 19-42, submittal of a section 5311 grant application for FY21 Federal Transit. Ms. Aguirre.
Ms. Aguirre. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Marcelino and I are here this evening to present resolution number 1942 for submittal of a section 5311 grant application for FY21 Federal Transit Funds. So the way this grant works, it is with the city match at a ratio of 80% state for administration and capital outlay expenses and 20% city match. And for operating expenses, it's based on a 50% state and a 50% city match. So we just received now in July our letter of awardment for our FY20 grant in the amount of $266,609.78. We are requesting for our FY20 grant an estimated amount of $547,350. And the reason for this substantial higher request is due to factoring in higher salaries and anticipating increases that we're going to have from here until then. Currently, we are down 2 buses, so we plan to fix them, but we are also looking to get 2 small buses through capital outlay, and that runs about $50,000 each with the city match of $10,000 each. Our administrative costs are going to be estimated total of $135,000 with a state match of $108,000 and a city match of $27,000. That's an 80-20 for administration costs. Operating costs are going to run about $280,000. That is based on a 50-50, and that's $140,000 each. Capital outlay, this well for FY21 will be requesting $100,000, and that's based on an 80-20 ratio as well. So the state would be $80,000 and the city would be at $20,000. Our anticipated revenues are about $12,000. Another increase that we're going to have is our lease agreement with our copy machine. In our audit finding, one of our audit findings was our passes, the way they were being produced. They were previously ordered in bulk and they weren't pre-numbered, and that was an audit finding. So what we're going to try to do is do like an in-house production of our passes, and that has already been approved through the state. So that way it is in compliance with everything that they're asking us to do with the passes. Currently, we have 7 employees at the Transportation Department, 6 full-time and 1 part-time. We are a demand response system, which means that there's a 24 to 48 hour scheduling that's required. We don't do same-day service. If we can, we'll accommodate. Our fares are 75 cents per ride. And we do offer the passes, $5 passes, which are 10 rides, and our $10 passes are 20 rides. And that's at a discounted, discount. So we're talking about 50 cents per ride. Upon my transfer to the Transportation Department in March, there was an ongoing compliance audit review with 22 findings and recommendations, and 13 of those items were addressed and corrected and approved. And so 9 items were left to address. Those items have since been addressed and corrected and approved, with the exception of 1 item that's pending, and that's an ordinance governing passenger behavior. That has never been put into place at the Transportation Department, so we're looking at getting that done. That has been completed and reviewed by our city attorney. And with an ordinance, there is a public hearing that does need to be held. So we have the notice of public hearing for intent to adopt the ordinance that'll be published in the Optic on August 21st and September 4th, with the public hearing being conducted for the September council meeting on September 18th. So along with this ordinance, we will be submitting for approval 3 resolutions on policies that need to be officially put into place as well, as per FTA rules and regulations. And those policies are the no-show policy, the child car seat policy, and the service animal policy. Our grant is due on August 23rd, and it's basically completed with the exception of the approval of the resolution. And that's it. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
No? Okay, I have some questions, okay? I was looking at the actual budget, and let me get to it. Okay, under the vehicle cost, under the fuel, is this consistent with the trend for a 3-year period? What does that trend look like?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't hear you.
Is this consistent? You have, I believe, $16,500 under fuel. Is that a consistent cost? Has it increased? Has it decreased?
I'll let Marcelino speak a little bit on that, because he's a little more familiar with that aspect
That
of
was
it.
fluctuated. This year maybe we're going to be 15.
You're going to have to speak up because the air
The
conditioning.
prices fluctuated just in the price of gas. A couple years ago when the gas was high, we went up maybe to 18, dropped down to this past year we're at $1.35 per gallon. So that's one that's always going to change. We have to foresee, the grant that we applied for now starts October 21. So we have to kind of look ahead for the following year. Hopefully gas doesn't go up, but I think we asked for 16.5 or 17 in the fill line. And every year we've come pretty close to that. That's come really close up 2 years ago.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Under the 21150 section vehicle repair, $9,000. Who actually conducts those repairs?
That one used to be under contract with the deal for just, okay, we have maintenance, we have repairs, and then we have all the other stuff, parts and stuff. When we did have a contract, we would use the contract for DAG.
I'm sorry, what did you use?
We used to use DAG.
DAG?
The contract that was with the city. Since then, we just go out for bids now. Any kind of repairs we do. Maintenance, like oil changes, tire repairs, that one's done. That also goes out for bid. But that one, at least we get in for the year and get that one set up. So it doesn't have to be poured out every flat tire, every oil change. But the vehicle repair one, it's getting a little tricky now just because there's really not too many shops in town. We have 2 vans down, one needs air conditioning repair, which isn't very common here in town. The one's going to be transmission work, you might have to go out of town.
For the flat tires and oil repair, wouldn't it be more prudent for the city to actually handle the maintenance of those vehicles?
If the city had qualified mechanics, yes, the state requires that everybody's ASC certified. I'm not even allowed to touch the vehicles as a worker in the department for any kind of maintenance or even tire change, or just because they're public vehicles and they're required to do something.
Okay.
There is, Mayor, if I may, there is an actual clause that the state requires that we are to be putting into each maintenance contract. We're still asking for it, so let's say DAG would have gotten the contract again. There's a certain clause that we need to put in there to be compliant with the state and federal regulations.
Based on DOT funding?
Yes.
For the railroad transit?
Yes.
Okay.
And those are federal classes that
Yeah,
need to be
exactly.
Yes.
Let me see, hold on. Training, under section 112.05, $1,500. I know it's not much, but what is it that we use that for?
It's going to be about 2 years now. Each person needs to go through 7 classes altogether to be fully certified to be a driver and also dispatch. Most of the times the only time we can get in town is we have enough people to attend them. So far we don't have the 7 employees, we don't have enough for our own classes. So the last one we wanted to do was in Los Lunas. So it was 5 of us that had to go. That includes the rooms for the employees. The classes are already paid for through the NMT agency, so that those are already taken care of as far as that part. So it's basically travel room. We do have once a year, we have our rodeo and our convention in Santa Fe. Well, it's been in Santa Fe the past year. That one we're also required to attend. Both of us take classes for the 2 days that they offer.
Okay, thank you. Under the fringe benefits, section 102.30, other fringe benefits, what is that cover?
That includes the vision, the dental, I'm not sure what RHC stands for, but it's retirement. And those are based off the civil.
Yeah. Okay. And I have one last question. What is the direct economic impact to San Miguel County with the culmination of this project for the transit and rail?
Like how, can you explain that a little more?
Jobs, labor income, and county tax.
Like the impact we have on helping people get jobs and stuff?
No, how many jobs to create, and what is the actual labor income that comes in from those jobs, and what is the actual county tax that is generated into San Miguel County that eventually will impact the city's elections? If you don't know, that's understandable. We can research that and have that question ready for this.
Wait, yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Okay, what is the pleasure of the board? I cannot put it on consent because I have questions for last time.
Consent.
Consent.
Okay, so if we put it on consent and I have questions, then that means I'm going to pull it from consent, so be prepared to respond. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cardinal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The next item on the agenda is resolution number 19-44, infrastructure capital improvement plan, the ICIP plan that we've been talking about. And we have Ms. Maribo, we have the instructor. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council.
Good evening, Mr. Archuleta. Good evening.
You have you have before you Resolution 1944 adopting an infrastructure capital improvement plan. You also have before you a copy of the draft summary of the ICIP, and that's pre-ranked, and also a copy of last year's. And I also included a PowerPoint just to kind of recap what I did last year in the council meeting, sort of covering what the ICIP does and is. Please remember that the ICIP is a working document that we work on annually, and it's subject to change and can be amended. Before I go any further, I want to cover what I did this year. So last year we had 22 projects. This year we are planning to submit 28. So we gained around 6. So what I did is I met with the staff and management and went over all the projects. And that's what we did. We kind of went over each project. We went over the amounts. We went over the language, the legislative language contained in those different planning projects. Some projects were deleted, some projects were reactivated, and some projects were added, and I'll get into that now. So the first one was a gas transmission line replacement. Was removed as per my discussions with utilities, and that was in last year's plan on item number 2. The heavy rescue unit was removed from last year's item, which was item number 10, and that was removed simply because we received capital outlay from this legislature in the amount of $674,465 for a new rescue unit for the fire department. And I am working with Chief Montoya on making sure we get all the information over to DFA so we can go ahead and purchase that vehicle. The next item was the Carnegie Public Library, which is item 22 in last year's plan, which was removed. That project was completed and the elevator was addressed at Carnegie Public Library, so that project was removed. The Main Street Corridor Improvement Project, which is also known as the Great Blocks Project on Railroad, needs to remain in the top 10. Simply because we received $150,000 in capital outlay for that project. And also we have the opportunity to apply this year for more capital outlay project towards that project on Railroad. So that project I would recommend to the governing body remains in the top 10. The Hot Springs Boulevard Reconstruction Project was moved into the top 10 and must be in the top 10 because right now we have a pending CDBG application to DFA in the amount of $750,000 grant request, and that will essentially cover a plan, design, and construction between Mills and approximately Cow Street for that CDBG project, and that'll include drainage, ADA sidewalks, pavement, and open trench drainage gate for some of the residents that are experiencing some flooding during high rains. The next one that we added was the aging water line infrastructure. We need to continue to make improvements to the infrastructure of the utilities under our roads, which is really important as well. Legion Drive was reactivated. That road is in need of repair, especially around the schools and the hospital. So that was one project that was reactivated. Another project that we added was the water treatment SCADA system. This is the supervisory control and data acquisition project from utilities, and that is a monitoring and assessment project that is really needed for a water system. We also reactivated Old City Hall. We have some preliminary plans. One of those is for the potential asbestos removal of the rear building, which is not part of the original building. That needs to be abated before any other renovation needs to happen. And of course, the roof is, if that building is renovated, would be the first place that needs to be repaired in that building. Salazar Street improvements was put in there because we also received capital outlay for that road, and is also planned and designed. We reactivated the Riverwalk project. We also received $70,000 in capital outlay for plan and design of the Riverwalk between the bridge on Bridge Street up towards Mills. So that project needs to be in the ICIP as well in the event that we receive further capital outlay from the legislature. Plaza Bridge reconstruction and Camino de las Escuelas was reactivated. Along with Public Works, Danny Goulet, we submitted a preliminary design and funding request for that area for pavement around the plaza and for certain areas, adjacent streets. So that project was added as well. We also added Romero Street improvements. We also received funding for capital outlay. And the last project that was added was Plaza Park electrical upgrade. As you're aware, during big events, for example, like Fiestas, our Public Works people have to run wires across the park, and so what we want to do is make improvements to that park where there's junction boxes that are readily available to vendors and users of that park.
They're used in other cities, and it makes it easier for how it works. Basically, what they are is some of them are underground and they just pop up to be able to use them rather than putting pedestals across the street and running wires.
So the ranking recommendation from the city is to keep the same ranking as last year as far as the top 10, and some of the projects kind of moved up. There's not really any new priorities other than the projects that we added. And of course, the top three major projects is Peterson Dam, the wastewater collection system, and the replacement of the PVC gas lines. And of course, Mountain View is planned and designed, and it's ready for work on that road as well. So if this resolution is accepted towards adoption, then I can get into the database and do the final ranking. And if the resolution is signed, I can turn in the ICIP and meet the deadline by September 6th. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, Anne-Marie, is the council going to go through the ranking and review process of these projects?
What we did was what we recommend is that we continue with the same ranking that we did last year. Unless, and by all means, please take a look at the projects. If any of the council, the mayor or council would like any of the projects to be moved up into the top 10 categories, then of course we can move them up. But I recommend that we keep the top 10 projects as is with the other, I believe, the 6 other projects that we added in at the very end, and that's strictly up to mayor and council.
I would recommend to the council that we not respond immediately. Please look at the list, and if you see that one of the projects is a little lower than the other, then maybe you can make a recommendation at the next meeting. But Councilor Romero, I'll open it up to you.
I just had one question. I know that we're still working on the reports for the asset management plan.
Yes.
So if that comes out and there's a street that is in dire need according to the report comes out and there's a certain, can we at any time we can put that in here, right? Or
the response to the asset management plan is that they were here last month to assess all the roads throughout the city, 77 road miles. That final report hasn't been submitted to our office. However, if there is roads that are in need of improvement, we can certainly add it to the ICIP. Probably after the legislative session, we could start working on it. Some of the projects that were added, Madam Mayor, members of the council, this year were the new capital outlay projects that we received. The governor last year did issue a letter stating that she will not sign capital outlay that's not on the ICIP. So we need to continue to be diligent as a city and add projects to the ICIP so that we can meet that criteria. So if we do receive it, it can get signed.
And based on the funding that you're acquiring and you've already committed to, that's going to tie into the actual feasibility studies, correct?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Archuleta, can you do me a favor and repeat what was added to the top 10? Because I know I have the current plan, but what was again deleted and
The Main Street Corridor Improvement Project, the Great Blocks Project, needs to remain within the top 10 because we are receiving capital outlay and we stand to receive additional monies. There was a lot of money that was approved for New Mexico Main Street that trickles down to the municipalities. And then also the Hot Springs Boulevard Reconstruction Project. That is because of the CDBG project.
That's number 10 on the first page.
It's on item number 10 in this year's draft. So if you look at the plan, the 2021-2025 plan, it's item number 10.
Hot Springs? And that's it?
Yes, Councilor.
We took away the heavy rescue.
Yes, that was funded through capital outlay this year. And again, I'm working with Chief Montoya to get those notice of obligations out to DFA so that we can order the vehicle and purchase it.
Anything that got funded was either removed, or if it was stayed on, like for example, the river walking incident, we got partial, but then we never actually removed it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead, thank you, board.
Consent.
Thank you very much. Good job, both of you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Madam Mayor, members of the council. The next item on the agenda is resolution number 19-4. Thank you. Resolution 1943, transfer of vehicles to Luna Community College. We have Commander Eric Padilla. Thank you, Mr. Padilla.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Councilors. I'm here on behalf of Chief David Bibb to ask for the resolution number 19-43 to transfer vehicles to Luna Community College, specifically to their automotive shop. These three vehicles have been sitting in our parking lot for quite some time, and through discussion with the command staff at the police department, we felt that because of no value to us anymore, and it would cost more for us to continue to repair them and keep them safe for our officers, that we give them to the automotive shop. That way students that attend Luna can rebuild them and have a learning experience on these vehicles, and Luna can possibly put them back to use on their campus. So it's a 2003 Chevy Blazer, a 2005 Crown Victoria, and I believe a 2007 Crown Victoria.
Just had, so it was Chief Bibb's decision to offer it, or did Luna request?
We spoke to them and they sent us a request. I mean, we did one rather than try and go through a process of trying to auction, which we probably get no value. We offer them out and they request, well, we have these three vehicles. So they requested, could we have these vehicles?
Any other questions? What's the pleasure, board?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The next item is out-of-state travel to Lawrence, Indiana. We have Commander Eric Padilla. Mr. Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Manager. This is a critical training that's offered. The registration and tuition is free of charge and was paid by the University of New Mexico as far as boarding and airfare. We are paying for meals and I don't remember exactly what else. It didn't cost us too much, but this is going to our newly certified reconstruction investigator, which is Investigator Caleb Marcus, along with Commander Pamela Sandoval, who has already been certified as an accident reconstruction officer for our department. And this training is for pedestrian and bicycle crash investigations. Their focus and certification is more on the automobile. So this is just an enhancement to their, try to make them experts in the field of accident reconstruction. So it's very low cost for a very good training offered to these two individuals.
The total cost for two officers is $890.36. training has been paid for and all we do is sample it?
Yes.
Okay, questions, comments?
Consent.
Consent.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very
Madam
much.
Mayor.
That concludes business items. Madam Mayor, members of the council, next item is executive session.
Okay, do you have need for executive session?
I do not.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Process.
Second.
Roll call.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Howell?
Did the city manager say she does have?
No, I do not.
We're roll call.
That was going to ask.
There is a motion. We need to vote.
Counselor Howell?
No.
Counselor Yellowbrew Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Yellowbrew Jr. and a second by Counselor Casey. Madam Mayor?
You already voted twice.
I didn't vote.
You didn't vote.
Oh, sorry, Counselor
Yes.
I
Romero.
thought she went to first.
I thought I did you first.
Everybody, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you were first.
Yeah.
And then Counselor Casey. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council.
Thank you very much. Meeting